We just said, come on back.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Had a lot of calls about the program. I'm not sure everybody fully understands everything we're talking about it because it is somewhat complex. But had a lot of calls of people that are trying to get in touch with you, and we're going to put something on the screen here in a little bit that'll help people because
Okay.
I think there's a lot of people out there that are affected by this, and now they realize that there's somebody doing something about it to expose this stuff. We don't do anything else. We can at least expose it.
Well, one of the things people don't understand, and what I am is a certified ADA advocate. And a lot of people, when you think of an ADA advocate, you think about somebody who is in a wheelchair. You think about somebody who maybe doesn't have their arms, can't see, blind. But those are disabilities you can see, but there's unseen disabilities also. And unseen disabilities now are come under also legal abuse syndrome, which is something the ADA has started to recognize, which is basically I call it getting into the hamster wheel of justice, of trying to find justice. So that's basically what my specialty is in the ADA realm. I also, though, look at who has jurisdiction over your problem so that we can try to figure out who the appropriate person to complain to is.
And, we see so often that people will tell you certain things they've been through. I've talked to this one person, and it's exactly what you're talking about is going on. And they say that they have a very difficult time explaining it to people because they don't quite understand it because it's kind of technical.
Right.
And she has actually researched the laws, and she's got her ducks in a row. But basically, they took away her home from her father and put him in a nursing home. Just took him down the road, dropped him off. So here he is.
Well, that's the guardianship issues.
Yeah.
And then you need to look at who owns the nursing home and who has jurisdiction over the nursing home. And depending on what the nursing home does, there can be different agencies that have jurisdiction. But more importantly, you've got the silo of the nursing home, but then you have the silo of the court.
Mm-hmm.
And who are you fighting in the court? And how much does the judge already know? And that's where we talked about the guardianship. And if the judge is going to allow the family to control still the person's health care, it's a guardian of person or a guardian of finance.
Mm-hmm.
Or the judge can appoint one person to do two. And that's what I had talked about, is how then you have a court date and you go into the court. And a lot of people don't understand what's going to take place in there because people don't talk about it. It's embarrassing. We were raised to believe in our country, to believe the truth had value. And so we go in there thinking, oh, I'm going to go in and tell the truth. And what's going to happen most likely is you and your family members are going to go in, and the judge is going to use different terminology, and he's going to ask questions of the family and try to create a situation in the courtroom to have the family look like they don't get along. Now, I don't know very many families who are perfect, even on TV families even. And so then the judge will say, family doesn't get along. I'm going to appoint so-and-so to be the guardian of person and then the guardian of finance. And then basically what you've started now is that you've got these two guardians who then get lawyers. And the lawyers usually charge anywhere, depending on the area. Like in our area, they're going to charge about $500 an hour that you're going to be paying for and fighting to try to get your money back. And they're fighting you to keep your money and to pay the lawyers. So it's a vicious cycle, and it's one where people don't understand it because there could be nothing wrong with the person. They could have, for instance, they could have taken a fall. They've gone to the hospital. Normal, happened. Then the hospital doesn't let them go home. The hospital puts them into rehab. they never see their house again. The house gets sold, all the contents of the home is no longer, it's no longer the family's. It now belongs to whoever the judge has made the guardian.
Mm-hmm.
And the house, everything. All the bank accounts, anything with their name on it, you've lost everything. And just like that. Just like that. People don't understand the power a judge has. And they don't understand, unfortunately, someone just recently asked me if I thought there were any good judges out there. And you know what? From what I've seen, I can't say there are. And, you see a judge, you have a great conversation with them, you go into the courtroom, he makes you believe that from his tactics, that he's listening to you and he cares about you, and he says, I'll get back to you on that order. And the order is always basically to F you. So, it's one of those things. It's hard for me at this point in my life to say that. I can, in my mind, I would like to think of some of the people I know and think, yeah, they wouldn't have done that to me, but they wouldn't have done it to me prior to the top guy in the old boys network or in the secret society of judges who decided that I was to never win in the courtroom. So, and I brought an example for you, okay, of how bad the judges can be. So, this box right here, okay? This box has all of my documents that I entered into the record. This box, I went to the courthouse, and I don't know if you can see in this, but this is somebody at the courthouse. I've got that wrong. This is somebody at the courthouse who is showing me that Judge's Chambers has all my documents. This is what I entered into the record in the courthouse, in court. And it has all the financial records showing what's owed to me in my divorce. Okay? A few days later, I walk into the courthouse, and they told me that it was in Judge's Chambers to take the documents because they were going to go ahead and destroy all the documents. Okay? So the next time I walk into the courtroom, I'm given this order. And it's signed by all 3 judges. And the order states that I'm not allowed to file anything else in the courts. Now, that didn't stop me, okay? And this is the box that came 2 days later. And you can see from the size of it, it's a little worn because I carry it a lot of places. And this was in October of 2012. That's how afraid they are of the truth. Now, I was pro se, and I couldn't afford a lawyer, and no lawyer would handle it because they knew there was no way for me to win because the judges had already made the decision. Because in 2008, the judge told me I would never win.
With all that said and done, what's the remedy here? I've advocated this for years, and I don't know why we can't get this done, but and I've talked to you about this. We're only one of 2 states in the United States that select these judges by selected few.
It's not a good system.
No.
But you know what? Even the elected judges in those states, because people go to they have the same problems we do. Because the judges usually are not, nobody will run against them. And people go to the ballot, and they play golf with them. They see them here, they see them there. They're not in front of them. And the people that are in front of them are afraid to talk out. Because if you talk out, the retaliation and retribution is harsh and swift. and let's say you can't afford an attorney. This is a letter that I've got from the Department of Justice, okay? Now, one of our rights is to walk into a courtroom and represent ourselves. We should be able to do that. You know what this letter? This is the Department of Justice states. As you know, when you choose to represent yourself, you waived your right to due process, including any access to the courts. Further, a decision to go pro se results in losing your rights to investigators, law libraries, the hiring of experts, and other resources that are available to a civil attorney. So according to the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, they're empowering the judges to, again, F with us. Excuse my language, but, I'm assuming that's okay. But the problem we have is even our own system is taking away our rights. And due process is in 3 parts of the Constitution. So it's one of the most important things that our forefathers felt we should have when we walk into a courtroom, is a fair trial, a right to a judge who listens to both sides and listens to the truth and doesn't look who is representing one person or who is representing themselves. And until we get that, until we demand it, and it takes people standing up. They say, well, you file a complaint with the JERC, which is the Judicial Inquiry Committee, okay, Review Committee. And what happened when I called him? I get the guy on the phone, and he says, I know that judge. Don't even bother. I'm not going to take the complaint. I send in the complaint. The next day I get a letter back. We're not going to investigate this. And then I researched it. I did a 15-year study on it. They don't review anybody's complaints. And maybe a few here and there, but that's it.
I filed a complaint and called to make sure they got the letter. They got forms you can do, but you can do a letter. I just put mine in a form of a letter in detail. And it went in. I called, we received it. And they said, you can expect something in the mail once we've determined. We never received anything yet. It was just dropped. Nothing happened.
Well, if they don't feel like you're going to follow up on it, they are going to drop it. And then that way they don't have to count it.
Well, if in a situation where if we elect judges, would that help that process better? Or will it still remain the same?
I think it might. Well, one of the things is I think Americans are starting to wake up. I think we are starting to see where I saw a post today on Facebook or on LinkedIn where they talk about the squad, the Democratic squad of girls who are very left and are are a lot of times very negative about people who are more conservative. And they're very much into socialism. So we have, and I believe there are 3 Republicans, but I'm not positive. But between the 3 men who've been to war, they're calling themselves the 5. Because one has lost an eye, so there's only 5 eyes between the 3 of them. They only have between them 4 legs, I think it is. One guy has lost both of them. The other guy, one of them. So, Then they also have lost, one of them has lost an arm, so 5 arms. So basically, what they're trying to show is that, what great Americans, after 9/11, they stepped up to the plate. So now they're stepping up to the plate to say, our Constitution has value, and we're going to fight for your rights, here on our own ground, on American soil. In my opinion, we have the start, and this is my opinion, of almost a little bit of a civil revolution, but that we can do verbally through the internet, not, other ways.
Wow. Mm. It's really overwhelming, you know. And
I know.
I'm sitting here thinking, you know, I've got some medical problems, and I'm on disability, and it's just one of those things, you know, age and people think they're healthy today. You don't know when that's going downhill. It can go
Right.
downhill quick. And I had a fall, and you bring this back to note. They tried to put me in a nursing home. I said, I don't need to be in a nursing home. I said, I'm fine. I fall all the time.
Uh-huh.
I said, I can get up and patch myself up and go on. Well, I've just recently had a fall, and the doctor wanted to put me in a nursing home. I said, for what? He said, well, you need to be rehabilitated here. I said, it's not going to help.
Right.
I mean, this is a thing I've got through, you know, having diabetes and neuropathy, basically, and you lose your balance. It happens all the time. You see me, I walk with a cane, but I didn't have that cane, I'd be in the floor.
Uh-huh.
I felt falling in here. But they want to keep putting me in that nursing home.
Yep.
And,
And in some ways, it's Medicaid or Medicare fraud as well.
yeah, that's what I was going to get, my point I was going to get to.
Yeah.
What part do the doctors play into this thing?
The judge usually has his own doctor. In a case I'm working on in Pennsylvania, so you had the judge. If you look at the chart that I did for them, you have the judge here, you have the family, and you had one person in the family that was an issue. And then you had the family's doctors, and you had the family's lawyers. Over here, you had the judge's doctor, who was not licensed in the fashion he really needed to be in to make the decision, and you had and didn't have near the credentials that the family doctors had, and they brought in like 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the judge's guardians, and you have the judge's guardian of finance. And they went through several of them. And several of them are now being, through the fighting that we've done, are being investigated by the government. But the judge takes the opinion of his doctors. So however the money flows, whatever the cycle is of how the money flows, that's who the decision's made. And they had $2 million, over $2 million has been stolen from this family.
Mm.
And there's several families in Pennsylvania that it's, 4, 5, 10 million, that through, and then once they get into a family, they don't stop. They keep going.
We need to take a commercial break.
Okay.
Folks, stay with us. We'll be back. Take